Someone had mentioned that they were measuring column widths in Power BI manually with a ruler.
This is something where if you've been using Excel for any number of years, you are very familiar and comfortable with not only adjusting the width of a single column, but easily being able to manually adjust and in a very precise way adjust the column width of multiple columns at once. Over in Power BI Desktop, the situation is nowhere near the convenience of what you have in Microsoft Excel. You'll notice if you right click on a column header, there's no option for column width. If I were to click and drag manually the column, you'll see that there's no tooltip that appears that shows me the precise width or number of pixels that I have in that column. If I switch over to the format area for the table and I go to column headers, there is an option to toggle the auto size of the column width. This is the default behavior to have the auto size on. But even if I turn this off, there will be no option that appears for manually sizing these columns.
There is a possible alternative.
The workaround relies on the fact that I have the ability to rename, at least from a temporary standpoint, the values that are on the table. And I'll address two circumstances here where what happens if I have data values that exceed the ideal width of the column, such as in the sales table, and then what happens if I have data values that are not exceeding the column width, such as manufacturer here. Let's take a look at both. To start out, let's bring some consistency to the width of these headers. And to do that, I'm simply going to type in a string. It does not give me the ability to have a precise width like I can get in Excel, but I can at least get a consistent width between my columns. And to see this, you'll notice that I renamed these to 6 characters long. And I'm confronted with a situation where certain columns, like my region column here with Southwest, or my sales columns with very large numbers, the values and the auto sizing will still drive it so that I'm not at that consistent point for my column headers yet. So how do I get there? I'm going to, for my text field, simply switch this temporarily over to count. And now you'll notice that the column width lines up with the header instead of the values. And the same thing for sales. I can temporarily flip this over to percent of grand total. And now I've got the width set up consistently among all 4 of these columns. At this stage, I'm going to go to Format, Column Headers, and turn off or disable this auto size column width. I can then come back here and I'm going to change this back to the sales number. And you'll notice that the width is preserved. I'm also going to change this back to don't summarize for the region, and the width is preserved. And in this case, the last thing that I need to do is manually come back and rename these. You'll notice that as I start to do this, certain things will wrap, where even the column header change will not impact the width. It truly is consistent and it's truly set to respect the manual width that I've employed. So hopefully you found this helpful. It's definitely not ideal. A complete workaround for the lack of capability in Power BI Desktop